Hey everyone, David here, back again to review the latest episode of Gotham entitled Under the Knife. Now, before I get started, I don't know if it comes across well through the sound on the camera, but I am under the weather. I'm going through this cold, so I'm going to keep this review kind of short because I'm not feeling all that well. But I'm doing this for you guys. I do it for you guys. But it also explains the messy hair. But we got a new episode of Gotham, and it's a continuation from last week's episode, chronicling the endeavors of the ogre, this serial killer that is hunting down these beautiful women, and giving more backstory to this guy, which apparently goes from 50 Shades of Grey from last week to Psycho with his dead mother's corpse being kept there in that bedroom, and that was the first thing that came to my mind, to Phantom of the Opera with this disfigured face that is now covered up by plastic surgery. It's Psycho of the Opera, only without any opera. And finding herself in the mix of all this is Barbara Gordon, who the ogre's obviously tailing and targeting because he knows that Gordon loves her, or at least he perceives that he loves her, because he goes by the photos that he has taken through the media. He warns that the media is going to be his biggest enemy, so that's what made Gordon put two and two together there at the end and say, oh, he's gonna base things off of the pictures that I have made public out there, and so far the only person that I've been photographed with so far is Barbara Gordon. Lee and him have never been that public, so they don't have anything to worry about. In fact, we had a bit of a close call there where they were kissing before Gordon made that public announcement in front of the press. So I thought that was actually kind of neat. A little bit of ingenuity there in the writing. But it's because of this that the ogre targets Barbara. And this led to two interesting things. For one, it looks like we're going to continue this plot into the penultimate episode, thus making this the longest running case in Gotham's run. So far, no other case has lasted longer than at least 2 episodes. We had the Electrocutioner and the Scarecrow, or at least the Scarecrow's father, whose name I can't remember, but anyways, both of them lasted for about 2 episodes before they were either captured or killed. So this time, we're actually going into a 3rd episode with this arc, which I think is kind of neat. It's the longest running story arc so far, and it might last into the finale, but I think they have something else saved up for the finale. And I'm pretty damn sure that these 3 episodes wouldn't have existed if it wasn't for that extension that Fox ordered of 6 more episodes added to the original 16. The other thing that I found kind of interesting is the fact that he finds something kind of different in Barbara. You know, if Barbara wasn't who she was, she would have been dead. So her colorful personality is actually what's saving her right now, because even he's looking at her and he's thinking, you know, she should be dead by now. But I'm going to keep you around until Gordon gives up the case, and in the meantime, let's say you and I have a little fun because you're just my type of crazy. Don't get me wrong, there's a part of me that still wishes that she bites the big one because I never liked her from the very beginning, but here it's almost like she's in her element, so she was much more tolerable than she has ever been. Now, there was a little bit of a switcheroo between the side stories that get all the attention and quality versus the ones that typically don't. I've been complaining for a couple of episodes now how the stuff with Penguin has been taking these baby steps in which Penguin is trying to retaliate against Maroni and saying, okay, this is what we're going to do and this is what we're going to do. And the stuff with Nigma has never really progressed anywhere, but in this episode they finally did something with both of those stories in a very grand and, I gotta be honest, very satisfying way. Something that I was not expecting, but I'm glad I did. First off, with the Penguin, he got reminded, and he was given a very cruel reminder that if he waits too long planning and scheming, things are gonna come back to bite him if he takes up too much time, and the enemy is gonna make the first move before he does. And this was definitely present when Maroni actually visits him in the club. And at first, this doesn't faze Penguin. He's like, okay, fine, he's here, he's taunting me, whatever. But the fact that his mother was with him is what set him off. He's like, oh god, no. And he goes in there, and that scene, up until this point, I was getting a little tired of the mother, and with her accent and her somewhat incestuous gestures towards Penguin, that kind of weirded me out. In the right way, because Penguin is supposed to be that weird, but sometimes I feel they would push it just a tad bit with his mother. But anyways, I actually felt bad for the mother when it came to that scene when Maroni decides to be ruthless and cruel and tells her what is essentially the truth about Penguin and all these people that he has killed up until this point, and hiding all of this BS and sweeping it under the rug to make sure that his mother doesn't know anything about that, which he proceeds to do at the end of this episode, where he kills that guy, the flower delivery man. And this was a really good scene, because this is definitely setting things off inside of Penguin and bringing back that ruthless killer who's not just going to plot and scheme, but he's actually going to move things along in a much more faster way, because I was getting a little tired of just seeing Penguin doing things in the bar without ever really progressing anything. So to see this happen, I hope that this is a way of the show saying, hey, we're actually going to make Penguin do stuff now. But as satisfied as I was with that movement with Penguin's character, it was the one with Nigma that I think stole the show, because I was like, wow, finally, you did something that made the character sympathetic and not a whole lot creepy, partially psychopathic, but man, this was something that I've been craving for a long time in what is essentially the birth of the Riddler. And I'm actually kind of glad that he didn't mention the actual term Riddler at the end, because they could have easily put that in there, but thank God they didn't. I was like, okay, you've been taking notes, Gotham. I'm sorry, you guys know I'm sick, but I was definitely excited to see that Nigma has finally taken that turn for, again, the psychotic, in which something, seeing Miss Kringle with those bruises is finally what made Nigma go, you know what, enough is enough. I've had it with these motherfucking jerks on my motherfucking girl. No more riddles, no more BS, no more beating around the bush. I'm actually going to take action. That is precisely what Nigma did, but not before delivering one last riddle. However, this one actually felt natural. It was relevant to what was going on. It came straight out of Edward's heart, and it was probably the best riddle that he had delivered on the show that didn't feel forced, and I liked it. And therefore, taking that turn at the end there, where he at first accidentally stabs that guy, I can't remember his name, but the abuser, and therefore noticing that now he feels that power that he has never felt before. He has that upper hand that, you know, those dudes have always looked down upon poor Nigma here, so having that taste of being the one to look down at another person is what made him continuing the stabbings. And, you know, it was the Riddler right there taking over. And I just love his only line for the remainder of that scene when the lightning was striking underneath the subway pass. Oh dear. Oh dear. And I'm hoping that's going to become, I believe that's actually a staple phrase for the Riddler. Oh dear. Oh dear. Like that. Like when something goes gnarly for Batman, he's always like, oh dear. That's cool. That's cool that they put that in there. So that's a nice little Riddler characteristic that they're stemming in a natural way through this scene. And overall, I just really, really dug this. The only slight nitpick that I have with it is that I felt like it came out of nowhere that the guy that Kringle was dating turns out to be an abuser, a physical jerk. I wish that they could have hinted at it for at least one episode, but still, perfectly fine with it. Now, I mentioned that there was a switch in terms of the quality and the amount of time they give these subplots, because the one that was making a bit of progress in the preceding episodes kind of takes a step back in this week's episode, and that was the stuff with Bruce and Selina investigating who's basically corrupt within the Wayne Enterprises board. And basically, in this week, all they do is really steal the keys from that guy so that they can find out whether or not there's some information in his safe that can lead to the discovery of who's exactly plotting this thing to opt out Bruce and Alfred out of the entire picture. And it was also introduced with that really weird scene at the beginning where that dude's like, oh, you look far away from home. I don't know, I just felt like it was handled very sloppy and weird and cartoonish. So hopefully they'll do something different in the preceding episodes, but this time they didn't really focus on that. And you know what else they didn't focus on at all that I found to be a bit miraculous was Fish Mooney, who did not appear whatsoever in this episode. And I thought that was actually rather neat. I'm like, okay, good. You're not forcing yet another subplot in here, and you actually took the time to focus on these other ones. So kudos to you. Even if it's a minor detail, kudos to you, Gotham, for knowing when to not show Fish Mooney. This was definitely a step up from last week's episode, and even though it still had its obvious inspiration from other material in terms of the ogre killer from Psycho to Phantom of the Opera, I still liked that it made Barbara actually feel like she was within her element, and I liked how they gave past side stories the attention that they deserved and the events that they needed to make things move faster than they were before. And for that, I feel like this was actually one of the standouts in these last 4 episodes of this first season of Gotham. So for that, I give Under the Knife a high 7 out of 10. Only reason why it's not a low 8 out of 10 is because I felt like there were parts in the middle, especially when they introduced the Ogre's father, that I felt like they were breezing through things that I think they needed to slow down on, because I was starting to get a little bit lost as to why this guy was having mommy issues. But for the most part, I thought this was actually a pretty good episode. So let me know what you guys thought of this week's episode of Gotham, and what's next for Edward Nygma now that he flat out murdered somebody. Do you think he's going to realize that maybe this is the life for him and not the one that he had at the GCPD, and therefore is going to become the Riddler? And what is going to happen with Barbara and the Ogre in the next episode? I'll see you guys next time. I'm going to go ahead and rest off this cold, and hopefully I'll be back at 100% by the end of this week, just in time for my Mortal Kombat X review, which I'm hoping to post then. I'll see you guys next time.